and it's their intrinsic
And then,
nature.
this food basically robs you.
Sound feasible, sound like Hey everybody, thanks for watching, and as always I want to thank you guys for taking the time to purchase this DVD or download the video. And I've been preparing you guys, to get ready for the PreparingForMetuNeterVol1 and all the videos I've been putting out on energy and everything like that. Everything I've been speaking on about the Bible and ancient Kemet and everything has been to prepare you to get ready for the PreparingForMetuNeterVol1. Now it's a lot that we have to get into before we actually get into the PreparingForMetuNeterVol1 itself. So, we're going to get into the history, the mystery and everything that is Kemet, everything that people speak about, all the hype, what the ancient Egyptians actually believed in, what was the whole principle, what was the whole research they were into, what was everything they was doing. And there's some things that you have to realize that you probably do not understand when it comes to ancient Kemet. So this video is to prepare you and to get you ready, because we're going to get into the PreparingForMetuNeterVol1. I'm going to teach you guys how to read the hieroglyphics. I'm going to teach you guys everything I can to prepare you for the PreparingForMetuNeterVol1, to get ready for the Book of the Dead, to get ready for the Shabaka stones, and get ready for, everything. It's a lot we have to get into, but it starts here. So let's start getting into this thing, and I want you guys to really take the time and, do your own research after this video and start looking into things. Go back and look at some of the videos that I put out. And refer to the Bible as always, and a lot of things, as I always tell you, it's coded, and we're going to use it as we go through this whole thing. But it's a lot of stuff you have to realize when it comes to ancient Kemet. That is a big misconception, and I'm telling you, a lot of stuff is going to get cleared up in this video, and you're going to have a better understanding of what the ancient Egyptians was about. So let's get into it. Okay, so as I was talking about in the Saturn series, that something happened a long time ago that forced the ancient Egyptians and many other people to live underground and live in mountains and caves for, who knows how long, hundreds, thousands of years. So what you have to understand is that, the people who we talk about today as far as ancient Kemet, when we talk about Hatshepsut and we talk about the pharaohs, we talk about Akhenaten and King Tut, and all of the pharaohs or the Nisut that we talk about in ancient Kemet, that we know about, the bodies we have today. What you have to understand is none of these pharaohs, none of these people were there. None of them was around when the Sphinx, or Haru Em Akhet, as it's known as, none of these people were around when the Sphinx was built. They was nowhere to be around. We contribute so many of the things in the ancient world to these Egyptians. So when we start looking at ancient Egyptian history, we look at the dynasties, we look at the Nisut or the pharaohs, and we think, many people think that everything that is Kemet is attributed to these people. But you have to realize that the Sphinx, or Haru Em Akhet, we're going to call it Sphinx for short because that's what everybody know it as, is dated about, over 34,000 years old. It's dated to. It's many people who look to the water erosion that's on the Sphinx and say, well, wait a minute, we know this happened, over 6,000 years ago, the flood. There's no way the Sphinx was built after that time. It wouldn't have that kind of water erosion in the desert. So then we still look at the accounts of it, and we can date it back further than that. So they don't really have a date for the Sphinx. They just know it's over 34,000 years old. And when you look at the Great Pyramid itself as well, it is also older than what they tell us. It is much older and predates these dynasties, meaning, again, none of these pharaohs who we're talking about, none of these Nisut, none of these people, Akhenaten, none of them was around when the Great Pyramid was built. And this is going to make a lot of sense as we go along. And you have to understand that, because a lot of people are getting confused about what's taking place and what ancient Kemet was about. And we're going to get into that. Before we get into anything else, you have to understand this video and what is going to be in this video, because it's important. It's important for you to know like what this is about. And there are little things that if you don't get, it's going to just throw you completely off in your research. So you need to understand. So again, as I talked about before in the Saturn and Satan series about the pyramids, there are pyramids all over the world. Pyramids found everywhere. Not to mention the fact that they can't date some of these pyramids. Some of them they don't even talk about. They don't really want to put a date on them. The ones that they do, goes back to before these Egyptian pharaohs or Nisut that we know about, that we talk about. Not to mention the fact that there are pyramids that we can't get to, and some that we can't even really examine. We have ones in China that the Chinese won't let too many people even in there. Then you have that huge pyramid-shaped mountain in Tibet that's supposed to be like the biggest pyramid in the world. It's huge. They won't let anybody in there. It's illegal for you to even climb that mountain. And the people who have tried to climb it reported that they were feeling sick or dizzy. Some people recorded time lapses where they lost time. Some people reported rapid aging. So they don't even go to that mountain and touch it. We don't even know what's there, what that is really about, because anybody who tried to document it was either arrested or couldn't make the trip because they were sick or something happened to them. So we have accounts all over the world of pyramids everywhere. Pyramids in the Grand Canyon, as I'm going to show you in the Saturn and Satan series. The artifacts they found there. There are pyramids all over, America. We know about the ones down in Mexico, and everywhere you look, when you start to look at the Becker-Hagen's grid, and you look at the intersecting points on that grid, we know that the map is scrap that we have today that we look at for us, the Earth. For you flat earthers, we know that map is not completely accurate, but a lot of people do go by the Becker-Hagen's grid because you can actually detect the energy coming from those intersecting points. And we know at almost every single one of those intersecting points that we have been able to explore, you'll either find ancient ruins, you'll find pyramids, like the Great Pyramids in Giza, which is under one of those intersecting points, or you'll find monuments at each one, just about every single one of these intersecting points of energy. So again, when you go back and you start looking at all this and putting everything together, we can see at some point, as I said, the world, everyone was obviously living in the ancient Egyptian culture, whatever it was before the dynasties. I'm talking about pre-dynastic time. There's very little information that we have that's pre-dynastic that we can look to as being 100% clear. So we don't know. I mean, most of the stuff is mythology that you get into when we go back that far. So we don't know exactly what was going on during that time and what was the customs and how were they living. But everything seems to go back there. And when we start getting into this stuff in this video, you're going to understand why. It's going to make a lot of sense. So now, whatever happened in the world to cause everybody to go underground and live in caves, the ancient Egyptians understood what that was. And when they came out after this terrible global catastrophe, they already had knowledge. The elders had knowledge, and they understood what they had to do. The rest of the world, was basically starting from scratch. They was learning things all over again. This is why it seems like, everything goes back to the ancient world, to the ancient Egyptians. And it seemed like, civilization started then. It seems like, people just disappeared off the face of the earth and, everybody was living primitive when it was quite the opposite. This is why people say that, the Mayans disappeared, the Olmec, they just disappeared. You go there, you find these ancient ruins in Peru and all over the world, these civilizations, and you don't find no people. You find graves, but you don't find, a remnants of these people, these civilizations. And everybody say, well, the Mayans knew something was coming and they left, and they, something happened on the planet that forced people away. The ancient Egyptians, when they came out, they understood what that was and what they needed to do to get back. And this is the thing, I know a lot of people always ask this question, what is it about us, African people, black people, that they hate so much, the powers that be? What is it? And this is something that you're really going to need to understand. I know I talked about this in previous videos, but I think, I can get into it a little deeper here in this video so you can get it. And you have to realize that, when you start looking at the Medu Neter and you start getting into the Shabaka stone and stuff like that, they held no punches. They basically said we were gods. The civilizations before the ancient Egyptians, gods walked the earth. They were gods. The Shabaka stone talks about, Ptah, the creator god, and Anut and everybody like that. We're going to get into all that in volume 2. But I mean, it's something that when you look at it, it's you don't know to take it as mythology or literally, but in both contexts, when you swear it's all mythology and when you swear it's literal, they are talking about gods, powerful people being here and them coming from powerful people and something happening. And this is what people are not putting together. There's something happening. What you got to understand about ancient Kemet is when they came into the civilization, when they came back to Kemet, I should say, it wasn't, of course, the same people. It wasn't the same Egyptians, as I said. So if it wasn't these same Egyptians who built the pyramids, of course, because the pyramids was built long before that, if they didn't have the same knowledge, what was going on, what was those civilizations and dynasties trying to accomplish? So now when you start getting into the whole teachings of the ancient Egyptians, when you start talking about, what they believed in or what they talked about. I mean, they talked about having this power. They talked about this power to basically transcend reality, to change energy into different energy into matter, matter into different matter. This is what people talk about. This is what they get into when they start talking about, Egyptian alchemy or high Egyptian alchemy or Egyptian high alchemy, whatever you want to say. And this is what they're talking about. I mean, this power, and it's something that is not figurative. It's like literal that they're talking about having this power. And I know a lot of people will say, well, if the Egyptians were so powerful, again, how did they get defeated? How did they get beaten? And this is what you have to understand. And this is what, I've read a lot of books on ancient Kemet, and it just seems like, nobody gets it. There's only a very few people who border on the understanding that I'm about to give you now. I've seen videos on YouTube and nobody is talking about this. Nobody is trying to give you the truth. It seems like, I don't know, either they don't know or they don't understand, or I don't know. But you got to understand the ancient Egyptians that we know about, that we keep talking about, the ones who was conquered and beaten. And I have not given you this reason before either, because I wanted to save it for this series. You have to understand all of the great things that we talk about when it comes to ancient Kemet, we attribute to these Egyptians, to Tut and everybody like that. These Egyptians, when they came back into Kemet, remember the whole saying that we find, man, know thyself. If they were so powerful, if they could do all these things, why would they have a slogan that says, man, know thyself? Everything was about understanding who you were. So what you need to understand is these Egyptians, the ones that we know about, the ones they've been digging up, are not the same Egyptians who built the pyramids. They are not the same Egyptians who built the Sphinx. So what was these Egyptians doing? They were trying to go back. They were trying to remember who they was and understand how to get that power again. So the whole mystery and secret of ancient Egypt, when you go and you start digging into it, when you start reading all the books and looking at what they taught, they were trying to recreate what the previous civilizations have done. So when we look at the bent pyramid of Sneferu or the step pyramid of Zoser, when we start looking at these things, and we start looking at the pyramid of Unis and Teti and Pepi, we have to realize that these pyramids, the pyramid of Neterket, who was Zoser and everything, the step pyramid that people think is so old and everything, these pyramids were done. They were built after the Great Pyramid. They were built after the Sphinx. So a lot of people come into Kemet and they think that this is the progression of pyramids. No. And I said this before. No, it's not the progression of pyramids that you see there. It is them trying to remember how to build the pyramids. Thousands of years ago, a couple thousand years ago, when you had the Greeks and the Romans and everybody coming into ancient Kemet, people from all over the world coming into Kemet to learn, because of course, when you go in there and you see these pyramids and you see what they was doing, the word had to get out that, wait a minute, these people know something. They know what they're talking about. They have some information. They know what's going on. They are advanced than most people, and they understand. So you have people coming into Kemet and getting this information. We all talk about it. Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben talked about how everybody came into Kemet to learn. So understand that. It gives more validity to what I'm telling you. Something happened. When the ancient Egyptians came from out, underground or wherever they hid at, they had knowledge. Everybody else was basically starting from scratch or using what information was passed down, through the ages when they were away hiding. So they came into Kemet to get this information, the Greeks, the Romans, and we know that they taught them. But they kept this knowledge that I'm talking about, transcending reality, this information on energy, because they knew it was powerful. They kept this for, the people who are in the highest ranks of, the temple, the people who were grand masters, the people who were pharaohs and understood, what this information was about. Because what you need to understand is, one, obviously, the ancient Egyptians that we talk about, Tut and everybody else, the dynasties, they obviously never reached their full potential. And this is what people got to realize. We give credit to Kemet. Yes. So many people give so much credit to those Egyptians, the dynasties. They did great things, but they never accomplished, as far as I can see, what they were trying to do. Could they communicate what I'm going to explain what this really is later, but let's just say higher beings. Yes. Or, could they communicate with their ancestors? Yes, but I'm going to explain a little later what that really is. So they had some power, but what I'm talking about as far as, energy-wise, no, obviously, or else they wouldn't have been defeated. They could have defeated anybody. So this is something that you have to, understand. So everybody came in. They learned, they studied with the Egyptians. They got the information, but of course they kept that knowledge for themselves. The true knowledge, the hidden knowledge, what they teach in the mystery schools. But by no means were these Egyptians the same ones who built, the Great Pyramids and who built the Sphinx. These wasn't the same people. They didn't achieve that level of power and knowledge yet. They were still trying to find it. So when you look at the step pyramid of Neterket or Zoser, this pyramid, they dated about 4,700 years old. And they date the Great Pyramid around 4,500 years old. So they're saying the step pyramid is older than the Great Pyramid. And that's definitely not the truth. So they want you, as I said, to believe that it's a progression of pyramids. They did the Great Pyramid to, I believe, 2540 BCE. And it's clearly older than the step pyramid of Neterket. And the thing that blows it all away, and this is the crazy part, because you can go and look at the Discovery Channel and watch, National Geographics, and you can literally see hundreds of videos on YouTube and on the internet about the Great Pyramids, and everybody will tell you, they'll sit there in amazement and awe and say, wow, how did they do it? These blocks are cut precisely. I mean, there's no way in a million years we could ever rebuild them. And they'll explain to you how perfectly done that pyramid is. And there's no way no way that you could advance so far in technology in such a short amount of time. This is why, see, people who can't figure it out, they'll look at it and say aliens had to do this. It's no way they can go from the mud brick step pyramid of Neterket of Sneferu and the bent pyramid of Sneferu and the collapsed pyramid of Unis and everybody pyramid that collapsed. You can go from that, and then you see the Great Pyramid in all its glory. Not to mention when it was completed with the whole capstone and the limestone casing and everything. Can't fathom something so great being done so fast. I mean, without some kind of intervention in technology and tools and knowledge. Never in that period of time. So if they give it a date, 4,700 years ago, the step pyramid, and then you give a date 4,555 years to the Great Pyramid, I mean, that's too close. It's no way in the world that they can advance so quickly and be defeated. This is something, again, you got to look at and say, well, wait a minute. If you could build those pyramids, how the hell can't you beat the goddamn Persians? The Greeks. How can't you beat them if you could build those pyramids? And this is why you are all confused, because you are saying the same thing. I don't get it. And they won't tell you. They won't say it to you, of course. Wait a minute. No. That the bent pyramid, the step pyramid, the collapsed pyramids were all after the Great Pyramid, which when you really dig into it and you think about it, it makes a lot more sense. I know it's hard to fathom and to figure out, but this is what happened. Man, know thyself gives it away completely to me, because they were trying to remember who they was. The gods that they worship and talk about, all these great powers, they are those gods. They were them. And when we get into this whole series as we go on, you're going to understand how we are now them. And we have to complete something. We have a purpose here that I think nobody is really serious about getting into, which is why I'm here. Because from my research, from what I see, this is why they hate us so much. We have a purpose, and if we ever understand what that purpose is and what we are supposed to do now, and being back here, we would complete it, and it would change everything. So to me, when I hear people talk about Kemet, when I see people all dashiki'd up and having the whole get up on and teaching about ancient Egypt, and it's like, I don't know. Some of these dudes are smart. Don't get me wrong, and they on point and they got it. They get it, but they don't get it all. And I understand why people are not. It's like they left us a message. I'm gonna get into that in the series. This message. They wanted us to do something. And it's like nobody is telling the people what it is they wanted us to do. So I feel like it's my charge to do so. And I'm going to be the one to let you know what that is and what we are supposed to be doing and what the purpose is that they tried to fulfill before they was conquered by the Persians and the Greeks and everybody else. What exactly, these guys was trying to do, what they were trying to accomplish that is now tasked to us. And we have fallen so far, and it's messed up, but it's not impossible for us to complete, and we'll do that. I think I myself personally am very close. Hopefully I can get there. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it here in America for reasons I'll get into another time, but it's something we're supposed to do, and I'm going to get into all that. But understand, these Egyptians are not the same who we look at as far as being so powerful and knowledgeable. They was trying to get that knowledge back and understand who they was and what they can do and how to gain this great power. And at some point when maybe somebody slipped up and told the Greeks or told the Persians or something like that, somebody let the cat out the bag, or the Greeks found out somehow that this was what they were trying to do. This is what the mystery is all about. This is what's possible. And they knew that if those Egyptians ever gained this power, you know, that could possibly be it for them, or they would never have a chance to rule. And we're going to get into that in this video and in later videos. But understand, those Egyptians did not build the Great Pyramid. They didn't build the Sphinx. Also, I want you to understand the date again. Over 34,000 years old. But I want you to listen to Stephen S. Mailer, who is a chematologist. Anytime you see a person who is a chematologist, this person, especially if they are white, are telling you that ancient Egypt was black. And, the name Kemet just gives it away right there. Understand, this is the black land of black people. So he's going to tell you basically exactly what what I was saying already. And it's good because I can't find many scholars who get it. Even in the conscious community, people who get this point, who understand that the ancient Egyptians were trying to understand who they was and not do these new, great, wonderful things, but to just simply understand what they had done already. Take a look.
Conventional thought is that the step pyramid, such as at Saqqara, was an early experiment in pyramid construction by the Egyptians, and that over the course of hundreds of years, they finally developed the incredible structures which are literally behind you. Can you please address this question?
Absolutely. First, we look at it from a totally different perspective, from the perspective of cycles. 5 stages of the sun repeating cycles. So we reject the idea of linear evolution, that everything moves in a straight line from the primitive to the complex. That is obvious. Anyone who studies even Egyptology sees that it's not in effect here. If you go back to what they call the Old Kingdom period, some of the finest construction, some of the finest glyphs, some of the finest jewelry. We go forward in time, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, and it degenerates, except for certain periods we call Renaissance periods, like the 12th dynasty, which was the Middle Kingdom, 18th dynasty, which is the New Kingdom. They seem to want to go back to the old ways, to what was the New Kingdom. So what we see in the New Kingdom is they are also trying to go back to an old way, a previous time. So Hakim gives us an idea that there were previous cycles. So what we're looking at here is pre-dynastic, prehistorical original constructions, some going back 50,000, 30,000, to the beginning of this cycle 65,000 years ago. So the structures behind me are much, much older than the one they say is newer, the step pyramid. The step pyramid is not even a true pernetter. These are perneters behind me, houses of energy, houses of nature. The step pyramid at Saqqara is a symbolic per-ka. No one was buried there, but a symbolic tomb. That's what the so-called dynastic people began to think the pyramids were. They forgot that they were machines, that knowledge was lost. So what we see when we go out in the sites, it is the foundation of what we teach as chematology. We call it transformation of the sites. My research partner and I, Bob Votter, when we first started to work with Hakim in the late 60s, we characterized his teaching as peeling away the layers of an onion. We peel away the dynastic layer, and there is ancient Kemet. And that's what's seen with the brilliance of a man like Chris Dunn, with yourself, people who understand manufacturing, woodworking, stone carving, can see what is ancient Kemet, machined without a doubt. The highest advanced machining, working in the hardest stone ever was on this planet. Diamond tools, carborundum, using sonic waves, using microwaves, all different advanced technologies, which we can document, not theory, not speculation, with solid evidence. And we can look right beside it with the brilliance of someone like Yusuf Awiyan, who can see it. So right next to it, you could see where they started to transform the site. Where the Old Kingdom came in and put hieroglyphs and started to transform. Then you can see the New Kingdom came in and started to transform. We can even take it to we see Roman transformation of the sites. We can even see in Roman temples red granite pillars from ancient Kemet. Yesterday we went to Old Cairo, saw two of the most beautiful mosques in the world. There is red granite pillars and alabaster from ancient Kemet. So it's obvious that every layer of culture that came in here saw the ancient Cometian civilization, the magnificent structures which we see behind us, and wanted to reuse them, transform them, put them in their culture, continuing that flow of knowledge to want to connect to the ancients. And so when we analyze the sites, we can clearly take people in the field and show the transformations. Here is the ancient, no writing, perfect flat surfaces, perfect rounded corners, radiuses on statues which are unbelievable, can only be done by bilateral symmetrically, which means that it's machined to the highest degree, highest color glosses. Chris Dunn measures tolerances of 2/10,000ths of an inch, the flattest, smoothest surface we've ever seen from any culture on this planet, yet studied. And yet we can see when other people came in and transformed crude chopping, crude glyphs, crude changing it, and that is the basis of what we teach. Obviously, ancient civilization that was used and transformed many, many, many times in many cultures, and continuing today with the Islamic culture, who uses pieces of the stone to build mosques, to build different areas. A whole continuum for thousands and tens of thousands of years, and we can show that continuum. Again, not theory, not speculation, based with solid, hard evidence from people who know, geologists, physicists, chemists, stonemasons, stonecutters, people who work with the material, understand the material, not stuck with the paradigms of academic Egyptology, which says it's just crude copper tools, drills, and stone balls bashing and doing this. It's absolutely insane and ridiculous. You know it. Everyone that we brought on this tour has known it. Everyone who has eyes to see can see it. It could not possibly be done by the methods they propose, by, as Chris Dunn says, by the toolkit that's left to us by the dynastic people, could not accomplish the job. We have yet to find exactly the tools. We have some ideas, some pieces we can put together. Obviously stone tools, obviously vibratory tools. Chris Dunn calls it impact ultrasonic machining, working with many, many different saws, giant wheels, different types of technology. But the evidence is obvious. Every time we go to the sites, we just gather more evidence for what we're teaching.
Installation is built on one, it's like the same layer, the same depth, and it's after the stone was machined.
I'd say it's after it's been machined.
Yeah.
Then it's the weathering just.
And a lot of pressure can also
Yeah,
do
to
that.
see that. I mean,
Pop it off.
if it was a little stronger, you could probably pull it off just. With
Yeah,
your
yeah, I
fingers.
know.
So
That's
no,
how many of the
after.
items loses that surface. But you can also find it in a carving. Can this be happening by weathering? Yeah?
Over what kind of period of time?
Oh, thousands and thousands of years.
Thousands and thousands of years.
There you go. So here clearly we can see the difference of different types of quarrying, different types of tool marks. The inscriptions on the top are 19th dynasty. It's Ramses II. This is a metal chisel mark. So this comes from that time period. However, Chris Dunn, Hakim was the first to point this out, and Chris Dunn agreed. Look at these score marks. Look at these score marks. All over score marks. Diamond tools. This was, when they originally cut the stone, this here is the quarried stone, these were blocks they were going to use, and then they use, as Chris says, a facing tool to even it out with diamond tips, and this is the marks. Hakim pointed this out clearly as diamond tool marks. And geologists, we'll have our geologists come, they've agreed.
So this is the actual quarry where the second pyramid, that one, some of its blocks came from here. The question is, how were those blocks removed from this solid wall?
Okay, so this is how they say they did it with copper chisels, and they're cutting granite. And comes along a person like Chris Dunn, says copper does not cut granite, cannot do it. Chris Dunn does demonstrations. I was once on a closed circuit TV special with Chris, 1997, where he takes a small piece of granite. He can't do it anymore because he can't go through the airports with his chisel, and so. But he'd have a chisel, and he'd hit it a couple of times, nothing to the granite, and he'd look at the chisel as dent. So they found out about this. So Mark Lehner, American Egyptologist, close friends with Zahi Hawass, who started out originally, I'll give a whole story of him, with ARE trying to support casing material. Then he got his PhD and he turned totally against that after they paid for his doctorate, and he became the American Egyptologist and traditional theorist. So how he explained this with an honest face, he said they would have 1,000 chisels lined up, men lined up with chisels. And one guy would go, bang, 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 no good, give me another one, bang, 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 give me another one, 1,000 lined up. And he says this with a straight face on television, PBS. Okay, this is what's known as a granite ashlar. It's broken, obviously broken off. This is one of the things Chris Dunn immediately came to. He had another one that's sort of, it was like a couch that he put in his first book, and I thought he meant this one. So we're on the plateau one day and we're walking, and I said, I'm going to your finished stone. He said, no, you're not. You're going the wrong way. And I came to this, oh, this one is better than the one he had. It's a perfect radius, all the way down, all the way. He's measured this completely, never deviates. But what's interesting to understand about this is just a piece. What you have here is a granite wall. I mean, a limestone wall. This is a limestone bed. Look at these stones, some 200 tons at least. Look at the erosion. This is very, very old. This is where Robert Schoch came, and he said this erosion could be 100,000 years old. This is very, very old. So what we had, this is very ancient, and it got so eroded, then they cut granite. and they placed the granite over it because we know that this had covered this, and these are just pieces. So this was, and this is upside down. We have one in the front there that's right side up that has perfect flat top. So this whole wall was covered with this granite, and we think this is the cataclysm that knocked it off.
And also the interior is granite.
Yes.
The core is limestone, the
Yes.
exterior is granite.
Yes.
So you have two materials.
Exactly.
Again, these, it's not like these were like simply put on. They had to interlock.
Right.
The same as the pyramids. And the amount of effort that would take to custom fit. This is in the Valley Temple. You're looking at pink S1 granite. This is the beginning of this stone.
There was a door stopper.
Goes around the corner.
If you look up there, you see the circle? You see the circle?
And the Egyptian door, Anthony, used to be locked up, not to the
All the
side.
way- Exactly.
The look was going up.
Right.
Around the corner.
That's where the hole is. You see the circular hole up there, Brian?
And this is the joinery, just like we see in the Coricancha in Peru. You're talking technically a perfect fit. Look at that.
Now understand, even if you are skeptical a little bit about what I'm talking about, you know, there's the proof right there. I mean, he's telling you straight up that they are trying to figure out who they were. It's just that simple. You know, you have so many people who put a date on the Great Pyramid over 14,000 years old, you know, way older than what they tell us it is, because it's no way possible. I mean, engineers can tell. They can go and they can look at the pyramid and tell, hey, it's no way they could have done this without machines. You know, there's no way. You can't do this with your hands. You can't move these stones. I don't care how many people you got. There's no way you can move them and put them in this position. I've seen tons of video on people trying to recreate and tell you exactly how they built the pyramids. Trying to tell you, there's no way. Machines had to be used. Powerful people had to do this stuff. And, you know, there's the proof right there. Whether you accept it or not, you know, it's up to you to do your own research. But I'm telling you, this is what it is. Over 14,000 years old. The whole thing about people coming into Kemet and learning and studying with the ancient Egyptians wasn't to figure out this new stuff that the ancient Egyptians just realized. You know, tell us what's new. Everything was about pre-dynasty. The ancient world. What happened? What was they doing? This is what it was all about. The mystery schools, all of the teaching is nothing new. And that's nothing new under the sun. That's what it's all about. Because all the stuff we see now that we are in awe about, technology-wise, they obviously had something far greater back then. It's nothing new under the sun. It's nothing new at all. So they don't care about what's new. They want to go back and figure out the old ways and what they used to do and get this power that they're talking about. That's what it's all about in ancient Kemet. This is what people can't fathom, and it's tough for people who are not spiritual to understand. So now when we get into this whole thing about, you know, why do they hate us so much? You know, why do they hate black people? Why? I mean, they have all the money. They have the power. I mean, they have seemingly won. It's over. We are defeated seemingly, but they won't let their foot off our throat. Why? Why the hate? It seems like from the systems all over the world. It is because, you know, once they got into the temples and, you know, just start deciphering all this stuff, they realized that this power they could never get without a decalcified pineal gland and an abundance of melanin, which we all have. And that pisses them off. So when you look at your X-Men, when you look at, as I said before, and I've shown, you know, the original Marvel characters were all based off Egyptian characters. Superman, that's a brother, powered by the sun. This is why they always white. Since they can't be this in real life or ever achieve this power that the Egyptians was talking about, you know, they'll make fictional characters and only cast them as white. You know, having these powers. We are the X-Men. We are the children of the atom, African people. They know what we are capable of. And all this stuff I'm talking about seems far-fetched and spooky, but is in stone. They didn't take the time to put this stuff in writing. And what I'm saying right here, basically, and we're going to get into this much deeper on a deeper level, is basically what they're talking about, what they're trying to tell you. And all of the text and everything like that, they just, made up stories to give you all this stuff. And when we start getting into everything, it's going to become more clear, and you'll see what I'm talking about because it's deep. You have no idea. Now, I knew I was going to do this series before I knew I was going to do the Saturn Satan series. And everything I wanted to put into this series, I knew I couldn't do it. I had to separate the two series. So, when the Saturn Satan series finishes, this series will pick up. So that will finish, and this will still be going on because it has to kind of bounce. So you get this information the correct way. I can't just come out and say it as I said, because if I just tell you, then, you will be like, okay, whatever. And your disbelief will cause you not to follow the correct path. So I got to give it to you in steps. But, understand, they hate us because we have the capability of doing something unbelievable. And I'm going to tell you now, from my research, the ancient Egyptians basically found a way for white people to beat their problem, their issues. And we see it a lot. A lot of people just don't realize what it is. And the whole cure for this whole thing is to come back to black. Come back to blackness. And that's what it was about. As long as they procreated with another black person and came back into the bloodline, came back into melanin, then they would be all right. It would take them some years and, reincarnating a few more times to get back where they would be melanated enough to reach this point. But it's possible. It was possible. So basically, if you white and you wanted to get this power and reach this potential, you would have to marry a black person and, have a baby with a black person. That child will have to do it and so on until they reached a certain point. This is why you see people like George Lucas, marry a black woman. People like Robert De Niro marry a black woman. This is why people like Madonna adopts black kids, and, Brad and Angelina Jolie and all these celebrities and rich people you see and going to go get these African kids who have this abundance of melanin. This is what this is all about, because they know eventually in their bloodline, they have to get this African in their bloodline. Because when we come back, when people reincarnate, they reincarnate within their bloodline, supposedly. And I'll explain why supposedly is in their same bloodline. But, according to I'm going to get into this later. According to the ancient Egyptians, still, if you are not right, you might not even be able to do that. And I'm going to get into that. You might be something that you don't want to be. So this is what this is about. This is what the hatred is about. This is why they won't let up, because we are already on the cusp. We see where we came from. We are all, starting to awaken, black people. It's a matter of time, and something drastic has to be done to us if they want to hold on to power. But you got to realize that this is a hidden war going on that a lot of y'all don't see. And, the people who we look to as an enemy is getting the same, I'm not going to say the same exact treatment, but it's in a war as well. It's not just us. I told you who the true enemy is, the Jews. It is the Jews. And remember, I was speaking about before how they said, the Jews wanted to basically cause a war between black people and white people. And I said, well, wait a minute. We consider Jews white people too. We don't care that you're a Jew, you're white. White is white. But you have to realize that these echelon of Jews that I'm talking about, these ones that's in power at the height of the power structure, are not, there's something different. And divide and conquer must go on in order for them to, fulfill their agenda. But we're all in the same boat, black and white, and we got to realize that. So again, the mystery is what they couldn't fathom, what you all, most of you couldn't fathom as well, is that the Egyptians were going back. Everybody who studies ancient Kemet will tell you they're trying to go back into the old world and understand the old things. Nothing new. They didn't care about nothing new. Everything was trying to figure out what they did way pre-dynasty. And, you know, one of the things that gives more validity to what I'm telling you is you have one point where pre-dynastic and, you know, before, there's no writing. Then we have a period of writing. So it's like, you know, what the hell did they do before they wrote? This tell you we're talking about a powerful people here. There's no writing we can find of them. We know they existed. There's no writings in the pyramids. Remember, we know they were here. We know they existed. They didn't write. There's nothing, which is why, you know, when the Egyptians came back, they understood that this could happen again. So they wrote this time. Everything that they started learning, they put it in stone. I mean, the fact that they came up with papyrus, and we know that they created paper and they can write on it, and they document it still on papyri, and then still put it in stone, tells you that this was really important. And they had to put this out and leave it, you know, so they, when they came back, they can get this information again. It could be in stone, and they didn't have to worry about something happening to it. I mean, they put this stuff to last, you know, to where it's going to always be there, and it's still there. You know, thousands of years later, it's still there for us to see and to understand and break down. And, you know, as we get into the series, I'm going to teach you guys how to understand the hieroglyphics and read them. And it's crazy when we get into it. And this is another thing, too. A lot of people always say, well, how do we know they gave us the correct translations? They didn't. And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't intentional on their part to give us the wrong translations, because the translations are not 100% wrong. They're just little things that the French couldn't understand, or they put their own little French stamp on. But people who really do read hieroglyphics and understand what's going on, it's easy for you to fix it. When you start really digging into Kemet, you can understand that they didn't mean this, they meant this. So our translations that we give, most black people who are into this, will give you the correct translations, and because we got to basically redo what they did in some cases, because they're just off or completely wrong about some stuff. So, you know, we're going to get into that. But, you know, as I was saying, when the Europeans came in there, when they were seeing the fact that you got hieroglyphics and you have depictions of white people, not just black people, but white people as well, worshiping black people, Egyptian pharaohs and gods, you know, they couldn't handle that. It's something that they couldn't handle. And the whole jealousy thing, it wasn't so much jealousy. And a lot of people just always say that, well, they're hating on black people and they just hating on us. You got to understand that they could not let any of this out. It raises too many questions of, you know, why are these black people being worshipped? Who are they? Which is why they switch the dates and they do all the craziness that they do to try to confuse you. They give you the wrong date on the step pyramid and everything like that, because then you would ask questions. Well, wait a minute. What do you mean they're trying to remember who they are? What is that? So they'll lie to you and tell you the step pyramid is older when it's not. So they seen, and I'm 100% sure on this, when I said before in Saturn and Satan series 2 and 3, when I was talking about how, you know, the powers that be understood that the Egyptians were close to this power. They were close to completely waking up and understanding everything. And, you know, that's when basically the hammer fell and, you know, we got invaded. And I still believe that the whole Persian invasion was orchestrated by Alexander the Greek, or orchestrated by the Greeks, for the simple fact that the Greeks who were living in ancient Kemet was, you know, they was fine with the arrangements. They were okay with worshiping the Egyptian gods. They understood that the Greeks had their own thing, and the Greeks were doing something. But when you go back far, the Greeks, remember, was coming into Kemet, and they basically took the Egyptian gods, try to make it fit their gods, but it's really all from ancient Kemet. Of course, the Greeks back then knew this already. So why go be with the fake people when you can go be with the real dudes who doing the real stuff? And, you know, they couldn't take that. So they couldn't just go in and fight with the ancient Egyptians right off the bat. because it would start a civil war. The Greeks who was there already would be like, well, what are y'all doing? So the whole thing with with Persia, I believe, was set up to where the Persians could come in and destroy them because they gave them, keys to the back door, basically. And then later the Greeks would come in and defeat them because, as I said, Alexander the Great, or the Greek, didn't even step foot into Egypt, but they conquered the Persians. And considering how powerful the Persians were, I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow. So I think it's some kind of, agreement that went on there. Just my opinion. But this all goes back into the Bible. When you start reading Genesis, I think it's chapter 11, starting 1 through 9. And when it's talking about the Egyptians or the people getting this power, I will say it's a metaphor for the Egyptians. But clearly, when you read verse 6, it says, "And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord God scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city." So when you're reading that, especially the part where it says at the end, "and they left off to build the city," who? Because if they scattered the Egyptians, or they scattered the people, and stopped them from building, how can they leave off to go build again? So again, as I said before, when it's talking about God in the Bible, I just did a whole video on this. Who is God? You're talking about the powers that be. Whenever they're talking about God doing something, or God says something, you have to know how to differentiate from a God, and them. But most of the time, they're talking about themselves as God. But it's talking about how they started to realize, basically what they're saying is the Egyptians started to realize who they was. And if they would have got this power, then nothing will be restrained from them which they imagined to do. Think about that. This is the power that they're speaking about, that we're going to get into. And they understood this. So, of course, they had to stop them. So the powers that be looked at it like, we could either be ruled by these Africans or these black people forever if we allow them to achieve their goal and reach this power. That's going to be it. We'll never be able to rule. And not 100% sure if the rest of the rulers understood where they came from during this time. Because remember, everybody else was just coming out of the Great Destruction. People didn't have this knowledge. They basically knew what the Egyptians was teaching. And not sure if they understood that everybody came from Africa, from African people. Not sure of that. But when you have people who fall from, consciousness, which was us, and splitting up and going to different parts of the world to survive, and then now, because of that, creating these other races of people, and then now, we became so far detached from the God consciousness, the true consciousness, and then people set off to do other things. The world became more materialistic because of that. Because people understood how hard it was to survive and to get food. You might not eat for days if you don't prepare right. You might die if you don't prepare. So in these conditions, of course, things are going to become materialistic. You need to eat, you need to survive, you need supplies, you need things in order to live. So I can't fault, none of us can fault the rest of the world for turning this way because they lost spirituality. But understand, a deal was done and had to be done with everybody else to basically come to the agreement that by all means, we must keep these Africans from waking up and understanding who they are. Because as I said, everything that's going on is about keeping us down and oppressed. And everybody's in on it. I know that's hard for people to grasp, but it's not everybody. It's the powers that be. It's this whole group we call the Illuminati, this whole thing we're talking about with the reptilians and all these leaders who are in on it. Because you can see races from around the world are starting to come to the realization that they are African and about what's going on and where they come from. Remember, the Chinese, the Japanese, and other people have already come out. Their scientists have already come out. Even white people have come out and said clearly, you know, we all come from Africa. We all come from black people. We are mutations. And that's what they are. Mutations, just like us men, as I pointed out. The woman is God. The black woman is God. She is divine. She is to be worshipped and praised. This is what the ancient Egyptians did. You couldn't rule without that woman, period. We're going to get into that because you have to understand that two mutations took place. And it's hard for, you know, strong pro-black people to accept this and understand that white people come from us. I mean, the longer you want to dwell on this black-white bullshit, it's just going to keep you from reaching true consciousness and waking up and understanding when you keep looking at a person as your enemy who is not your enemy. Just because they disagree with you and they might not like you doesn't make them your enemy when you have a far greater enemy that you need to be focusing on. This stuff is divide and conquer. These powers that be, these people, are not who you think they are. And it's not a race of white people, as I said before. So we got to really understand that and realize what we are talking about, what we are trying to accomplish here as people, as African people, is far more greater, far more deeper than, you know, us just bickering back and forth about black and white. And, you know, everything that they are doing, as I said, everything is about keeping us down and oppressed and keeping us held back from understanding and waking up. Trust and believe me when I tell you this. It's all about that. Everything. It's all about us. Everything has always been. I mean, come on. Just look at it. The whole slavery thing and everything after slavery, what's all in the news is, you know, throughout history, Africa, black people, it's always us. It's always been us, always been about us. It's always something we are in the mix of and something, you know, that's going on that's centered around us. And, you know, we just can't get around it. America was built by slave labor, period. The whole slave trade made people super rich. We can't get away from that. Everything deals with us. So, you know, we got to realize that. And the powers that be want us to keep arguing about stupid shit and not understanding, you know, what they were trying to figure out. It's just that simple. So, you know, they tell us these lies. And it seems like when we go back and start looking at ancient Kemet, you know, everything is always only about the dynasties. You know, with the pre-dynastic period, we don't really get into. They don't want to talk about too much. It's like everything just falls off at 3100 BCE with Minas and Narma. So we get into Minas and Narma, and it's like, okay, well, boom. But, I mean, what about the Shabaka stones? When it's talking about these gods and the creation of the universe and how, you know, this God presence was here. And, of course, they stole that and gave us the Genesis story. So now I just gave you the first part for you to understand, you know, the first part of the understanding of what the ancient Egyptians were actually trying to do, you know, and what they believed in. They were trying to rediscover who they was and a power that they lost and understand how to basically master energy, you might as well say. But there's more, you know, to this, more to the story. And this part that I'm going to get into now is, you know, just as deep, but it's really important. It's much more important for you to understand this because it's almost basically everything. It's going to make a lot of sense and it's going to connect a lot of dots for you. So now understand, the ancient Egyptians understood that we fell in consciousness. They understood that we fell from a God state to a animalistic state. And this is why you see, you know, all of these. When you see people like Anubis here with the dog head, and you start seeing all of the animalistic themes around Kemet and how they, you know, really, really used animals a lot. And the Europeans say we worship animals and we have sex with animals and all kinds of stuff like that. But they can never understand what this is all about. And we're going to get into this. I took out a couple statues that I have. A lot of people always ask me about my book collection and do I have things like this? And remember, I just moved here. I have a vast, huge collection, probably a little bit more than I should have, of little things like this. And my book collection is unbelievable. But, of course, still in storage and some still in Sweden because when I move into a home eventually, get out of this apartment, then I'll put everything on display for everybody to see, and I'll start going through some of the books later. I'm going to go through some books here in this video too. But get back on the point. Sorry about that. But this is what it's about. The animals. They understood that we fell to a animalistic state, and the whole problem with that is it's kind of sort of a pro and a con to this state, because there's a way that we are supposed to master this state. But at the same time, we're supposed to stay within that state. So to put it clearly, it's not all that bad because they understood this. But the fact that we cannot control it is the problem. And that's what this is basically all about. Controlling the animalistic state within us. Controlling the flesh. And that's why the Bible gets into all this stuff of the flesh and this and that. It's because it's put with the animal, and it's gonna make a lot of sense, and y'all gonna be blown away by this information. But this is why they used the animal, because they understood we fell to this state. But at the same time, they knew that the animals that roamed the planet was conscious, that they was connected. They don't need to speak and everything. They connected. They understood that they had this energy and power, but they didn't. The animals themselves don't have that, ability, that consciousness that we do. But it's a state that we fell to, that we need to really understand and master. So the whole thing about the Sphinx, of course, which is why it was so prominent, is because, your intellect must rise above your animal nature. This is the foundation of everything that they're talking about in Kemet. And you'll see it clearly as we go through that this is what they're talking about, and about mastering the animalistic state and mastering the flesh. So the Garden of Eden story, when we look at that story, what is it about? It's about the fall of man being caused by what? An animal. An animal causes the fall of man. A reptile, a snake. So it's referring to the reptilian part of our brain. And the reptilian part of our brain controls our heart rate, our breathing, our body temperature, our balance. The reptilian part of our brain is compulsive. It has no chill, so it must be controlled. So now, when you look at the green anole, which is a little tiny reptile, a little tiny lizard, it had its genome sequenced and reassembled. And they found its genome contained about exactly 17,500 protein coding genes. Of that 17,500 genes, 4,000 of those genes can be found in mice, dogs, platypuses, possums, zebrafinch, which is a bird, and in us. So now understand, at least 22% of our genes are reptilian. 22%. And we share a lot of other genes with animals, with many other animals. And I guarantee you that if they have a genome sequencing of many other animals, that we could possibly find all the genes in human beings within these animals, probably excluding a few that we might not know where they came from, because they possibly came from whoever created us. But we can probably find everything else within these animals. So think about that. The simple fact that we share genes with many of these animals I just named, and they have found others as well by doing a genome sequencing, that we share these genes. So right there, we're talking about the animalistic nature of man. So when we go and we look at, Horus or Heru with the falcon head, and Anubis with the jackal head, Thoth with the head of an ibis. When we start going back and looking at these, zoomorphic depictions of beings and animals, you can start putting this stuff together, understanding what they're talking about. When you look at the body of Heru Aket, the Sphinx with the body of a lion and the head of a human. When you look at the Egyptian zodiac, you have 12 Egyptians holding up the sky. Inside, you see a bunch of animals. We embody all of these animals in many different ways, physically, mentally, and spiritually. This is why they call our children kids. A kid is a baby goat. While the Jews call people who are not Jews goyim, which is cattle. While we call people who are not conscious sheeple, which is to say they're sheep. They're being led to the slaughter, or they're being led. So you got to think about in so many ways that we use animals in describing people. We'll say, you sneaky fox, or you a snake. If a girl got a fat ass, we'll say, damn, she got a donkey. We use animals in so many different ways, and we don't realize why we keep bringing up this animal terminology. We don't look at the ways that the movie industry use animals. I mean, just think about all of the shows you grew up with. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, animals. Disney, you talk about Mickey Mouse, Goofy, Donald Duck, animals. All these cartoons filled with animals talking and interacting in this world as if they were humans and doing human things. I mean, think about that. Think about how we see animals do things that humans do in almost every single one of these cartoons. I mean, we say about humans, man, you act like an animal. And you have seen many videos of animals acting like humans. You've seen a damn monkey ride a bike. I've seen a damn squirrel surf and ride a jet ski. You've seen all kinds of things. I mean, for God's sakes, a damn parrot can talk. But you don't understand what they're trying to display when they show you TV shows like, Wicked Tuna and, the whole Steve Irwin thing with him, the crocodile hunter and everything was about mastering animals. This is what this stuff is all about. This is what the ancient Egyptians is trying to tell you, that it's about the mastery. This stuff is all Masonic at its deepest level. So when you go to the circus, what is that about? You see men, humans, mastering animals, taming the lion, the humongous elephant, making them do unbelievable things. It's Masonic. When I talked about in the Saturn and Satan, matter of fact, it was in the Muslim, the hidden hand that controls Islam, that video I put out not too long ago. In that video, I talked about how the circus is Masonic, how the Shriners, their whole connection that they have with the circus. Now you understand what that's about. All of this stuff goes back to Kemet, about controlling the animalistic nature. And they put this on display. They're trying to tell you something, but you don't realize it. You think it's just TV. So many shows out there, so many movies dealing with animals that do human things. That's what it's all about. This is what the ancient Egyptians was talking about and what they were trying to convey to us about our animalistic nature and taming it and understanding, what it is and how we have to basically, become one with it and control it. As I said, the animals are connected. They are in. They don't speak. I mean, when you look at a pack of lions, when they come together, when they gotta unite to make a large kill, it's not like they go into the bushes and, they draw on their paw plans. Okay, you go this way, you go around this way and do this. And then when he come this way, I'm going to jump out the bushes and I'm going to be on his back. They don't do that. This is all done telepathically. This is done by instincts. They can map out this entire plan. I seen them, National Geographic one time, them lure this one buffalo through this one area. I mean, they chased him, so he followed this specific path. And when he got there, it was these two lions already waiting there for him. They jumped out on him and they got him. It was over. I mean, the strategy in that with no kind of communication that we would consider communicating. How did they do it? So understand that they are connected. They are tapped in. All of these things that we see is trying to tell you this is what it's about. This is the deep part about this stuff. Animalistic nature. This is why they zoomorphicized so many things, and we see so many zoomorphic images in ancient Kemet because it's all about that. And we have to master this part of us in order for us to transcend and become and gain control of this energy, this power. It's not just limited to animals. So when we're talking about animals, what are we talking about also? We're still talking about nature. So, I mean, the insect is in this as well. You know, the wind, fire, the elements, everything. So understand it gets deep. It gets really deep. You know, I couldn't wait to get into this information and start putting it out. And for those of you who have followed and watched all the videos and been paying attention and keeping up, you are ready to start getting into this information, especially if you've seen the Saturn and Satan series. If you have not seen the Saturn and Satan series so far, I highly recommend that you do not watch this video, that you go and you watch that series up to part 3 where we are at so far, because you might be lost with some of the things that I talk about in this video. But I highly recommend that you go and watch those videos first. But this is it's time for us to really get into this information. And you know, it gets deep when you start looking at, you know, this side of it, especially, you know, as it pertains to the ancient Egyptians. They had a profound respect for animals. They understood them and their attributes, what made them special. And they could see the traits in animals in us, which is why, you know, all the zoomorphic depictions are all over the place. So they understood that we had these traits and we should use them to make ourselves better. You know, they had a profound respect for animals. But I also want to clear something up, because I get this question a lot, and it's going to really help us out as we go along. Because once I put up the hieroglyphics or the depictions, a lot of people are going to get confused when they see this. So, as I said, they had a profound respect for animals. But did the ancient Egyptians eat meat? And a lot of people always ask this. And the whole reason why we tell you do not eat meat is because it disturbs your energy. It disturbs your frequency. It puts you in a low place. It keeps you grounded when you eat bad meat. Now, there's a way to bypass this, and there has always been a way to bypass this. The thing is, clean meat has a lot of proteins and nutrients. You got to understand that meat is a brain food. Always has been, always will be. Meat contains vitamins B12, D13, creatine, and a bunch of other nutrients that helps the muscles and the brain. So when you understand something that is brain food, it's something that gives us nutrients that can only be found in meat, then of course the ancient Egyptians ate meat, and they left the hieroglyphics and depictions to show you that they eat meat, fish, and eggs. Plain and simple. They ate these things because they were brain foods, and they knew they can get the nutrients from it, but they ate clean meat. That is the big deal here. Clean meat. You got to understand what you are eating. And the problem is we don't know what we're putting in our body, as I talked about in that whole video I did on food. You know, I put out these videos for a reason, so you can get this stuff and understand. But understand there has never, ever been an ancient civilization that we have ever found on the face of this planet that was vegan, that did not eat meat. So I know a lot of you struggle with this, and you struggle with, you know, putting down the pork chop and not eating this chicken and beef and red meat and all the stuff that you hear and find and you see all over TV and everything. You know, all the stuff that Dr. Sebi talks about and everybody else. You need to understand that the reason why people tell you, and I tell you, not to eat meat is because the meat now is not clean. If you don't know where this meat is coming from, how can you know if it's clean or not? You know, organic here in America doesn't mean 100% organic. This is one of the perks I had being in Sweden that I missed, because they will tear the place down. They will burn it to the ground if they found out that they put any kind of chemicals, you know, GMOs or whatever, growth hormones in the meat. They will just burn the place down. They don't play that over there in Europe. But here in America, as I said, people would rather argue about, you know, Britney Spears and stupid stuff other than stand outside and protest what's going on with our foods. So yeah, they could eat meat because they ate clean meat. So when you know that meat is a brain food, that meat helps your muscles and your brain power, it gives you energy, then of course you will eat it. And you know, when you look at the diet of the ancient Egyptians, they did have a large vegetarian type diet. You know, meat was really for rich people. If you was rich, you had meat in ancient Kemet. You can afford it. You know, a butcher, somebody actually knew how to clean it and everything like that to make sure that it was clean. Because of course, if you have bad meat, this is why the pig and everything is so revered, why people hate the pig, because back then, if you didn't clean it right, if you left it out too long, if you didn't cook it right, you can get sick and die. So of course, pig got the bad rap because people just didn't have the knowledge and understood, you know, how dangerous meat could be if you didn't cook it and clean it properly. So rich people back then in the ancient world had meat. It didn't mean that meat was bad. It mean only rich people could afford it because they can afford to properly cook and eat it. Something all of us today understand how to do. It's enough shows and free cookbooks for you to understand how to prepare meat properly. Again, the problem is finding the clean meat to eat. So, I mean, you have to think about it. The brain is 2% of our body fat, but it uses 20% of the body's energy. So you got to feed that brain. This is why people pass out when they don't eat meat. I know it happened to me. It happened to me not too long ago, jogging and passed out. Went to the doctor, got to eat meat. I was taking supplements thinking I was getting enough protein, you know, sun gazing to get a lot of vitamins from the sun. So you must eat meat. But if it's not clean, don't touch it. If you don't know exactly where it came from, that it's 100% clean, which is almost impossible for a person living in the ghetto, in the hood, and shopping at a lot of these stores, you just don't know. And they have made a conscious effort, the powers that be, to give us nothing but bad meat. So you got to really understand and know where your meat is coming from if you're going to even attempt to touch it. But, you know, they understood this. Now, one of the reasons why they could eat meat and they understood how to eat meat is this. You have to look at let's take the lion. Let's take the lion, for example. Lions have a capacity for meat. So do humans. So do we. So a lion can eat between 63 and 66 pounds of meat in one feeding. And after it does that, it'll fast. A lion will eat that large meal, 66 pounds, and it probably won't eat again for a week. And the thing is, a lion can eat between 63 and 66 pounds of meat in one feeding. But humans, us, we are only supposed to eat 0.63 to 66 grams of meat per pound that we weigh. So put it like this. This is a week. So put it like this. Let's say 0.66 grams per meat. 0.66 grams of meat per pound that we weigh a week. So basically, you should only consume between 400 and 600 grams of meat per week. So to put this into context, basically a 5-ounce steak is about 80 grams. So, you know, in a week, you can't eat, 6-7 steaks. there's only but so much meat you're supposed to consume in a week. The problem is people are overeating meat. Every day people eat meat and they never fast. So again, it's about, that animal nature and mastering it, but also getting back to some of the things that we need to do. I mean, animals do things right. It's just that simple. They do what they're supposed to do in nature. So we are as well. When you gorge and overeat and you basically OD on meat, then of course you'll get fat and you'll get sick and you'll develop all kinds of disease, especially if the meat is bad, because you don't give your body enough time to fast, to heal itself. One of the things Dr. Sebi talked about was how, 3 months he fasted and basically everything that was wrong with him corrected itself. When you get a cut on your arm and you put a Band-Aid on it and, next thing you know, it's healed fast, a day, 2-3 at the most, that little scar it's fixed because of, there's nothing rubbing against that wound. There's nothing causing that wound to reopen. It has time to heal. You put a Band-Aid on it, nothing's going to touch it. It's going to heal. Imagine you get a cut on your arm and every day you just rubbing it. You keep pulling it apart. It's never going to heal. It's never going to fix because you're constantly messing with it. So when you gorge on meat, when you put over the capacity of meat into your body, you're not giving your body the time it needs to break this meat down properly and extract the nutrients from it and discard the rest. So when you don't give the meat that time to process, when it's like, okay, I got this meat I got to deal with. Here comes some tacos. Okay, here comes some salad. Here comes a soda. I got to keep doing. So I got to put the meat that I started out with to the side. So it sits in your lower intestine. It sit there and ferments. It rots because your body can't handle it. You got so much stuff coming in like a conveyor belt. So, it gets piled up and you get sick, you get cancer, you get fat and what have you. But if you reach the capacity for meat and you get there, what you should do is for the next 2-3 days, you should fast. Not completely, but, eat, foods that helps with digestion, like yogurt to a point, honey, and some other foods that help with digestion that escapes my mind right now. But eat foods that help with digestion. And that's it. No meat. Stay off of meat for 2 days, 3 days. Leave it alone. Give your body time to digest the meat you already ate. And this cycle should repeat itself. Like you should have meat, every other week. So one meat you have meat. The next week, if you can help it, no meat if you can. Or at least for those first 3 days, no meat. Give your body time to process it, break it down, take out the nutrients, and properly dispose of it, and you will be fine. This is what the ancient Egyptians did, so they could eat meat. And then you see they also had a diet rich in vegetables because they knew once they ate the meat, those who could afford it, they had to get off the meat and then, eat the vegetables. So again, no society has ever been vegan. No ancient society has ever done it. Religion and things that come along later and use them. Well, I'll say this modern era because I don't remember it when I was a kid growing up. People talking about being vegan so much like today. Men eat meat. It's just a thing that we say. You know what I'm saying? You eat meat, and they ate meat. So that question is answered, and you understand why and how. I don't want you sitting up there killing yourself over a piece of chicken. When you understand, when you get clean meat, you can eat it, you can enjoy it, you can barbecue, you can eat what you need to eat, but you got to know how to properly cook it and dispose of it, and treat your body right, and it's going to help you with everything in the long run with the meditation and becoming spiritually conscious and everything like that. Your body has to be right. It has to be set right. You need to be healthy. I just came from the doctor a few months ago and happy to hear healthy. That's one of the things you want, healthy. You know what I'm saying? And my doctor, she watches my videos and she's going to buy this. She probably bought this DVD already. So shout out to Dr. Lynn. And the thing is, if we don't keep the body right, if we don't eat right and do what's right with the body, it's like everything else is like no point. It's like, what's the point? There's really no point. And I see people struggle with the whole meat thing, but you should eat your meat, enjoy it, make sure that it's clean 100%. If you one of those people who just can't do without it, halal. Go to the Muslims. At least they're good for something. Go get halal. Get your meat from them, because, or where we get our meat from, I get my meat from, I go to the Thai, to the Chinese, the Thai people, and the Asians, because they don't play that. They don't play that. If like here on the West Coast, even some of the Mexican places, you know, because they have chickens running around in their backyard. Some of these Mexicans, you know, that's fresh chicken. Some of them a lot of them will get their meats from Mexico. You know, Mexicans ain't got no time to be buying no chemicals and pumping that stuff in the meat. They ain't doing that. But they got chickens in abundance. So, you know, sometimes it's not so hard to find the meat. I know it's expensive. It's weird when you go into the supermarket and you see chicken. You look up, you see the same exact chicken, but it's like triple the price. It's like, what is the difference? You know, they're going to make you pay a lot of money to be healthy. So be conscious of what you're putting in your body and what you're eating. And you can eat meat. Don't let these people talk you out of it and say it's this and that, it's this and that. I'm telling you, do your own research. If you stay within the capacity, you'll be fine. Now, again, to be clear, you know, people like Dr. Sebi and other people who told you not to eat meat are talking about the meat that you consume, you know, in this society that we get from these supermarkets and what they cause to happen to your body. It's just that simple. So Dr. Sebi just said, just don't eat it, plain and simple. But as I said, meat has proteins and they have nutrients that the body needs, the brain needs, that can only be found in meat. So, you know, as I said, stay within the capacity. If you eat things like ginger and beans and mint leaves, they help with digesting your meat, yogurt and stuff like that. So the ancient Egyptians even drunk beer. That's another thing I forgot to say. They drunk beer. They made beer and they drunk beer. They drank wine. So, I mean, it's just stuff like this. When you understand the body and how it works and how fasting and healing your body plays a major role in no matter what you put in it. You know, we're not just going to sit around and eat leaves and nuts and stuff like that. I mean, it causes depression when you're not happy with your food. And that's already something that messes with your mind mentally and messes with your health. So you want to be happy. Food makes people happy. The correct foods make people happy. It made them happy and they ate accordingly, but they also took care of their body afterwards. But I'm sorry to spend so much time on meat. Get back onto the subject, but this plays a huge role in their lifestyle. So I have to get on it and help you guys out as well. So the ancient Egyptians had farming. They had agriculture. They had efficient systems of farming and agriculture that they used to help them, you know, in their day to day. I mean, they worked very well. When you look at the hieroglyphics of the farming, everything was done efficiently. I mean, like the worker bee. I mean, everything that they did mimicked nature and the animals. Everything was done for a reason. It had a purpose. And this is what they was trying to get back into, mastering the body and that animal nature, but at the same time getting back to it, because there's a lot of things that animals do that we need to learn how to redo again. I mean, they do things the correct way. An animal is not doing something to impress you. They ain't doing something to try to get a girl. Well, you know, some animals do their little dance, whatever like that. You know what I'm talking about. But they're not doing something like, I'm going to go eat these leaves because it's cool, because it's in. Mint leaves are in this season, so I'm going to eat this. They don't do stuff like that. They do things according to nature. And this is what the ancient Egyptians was trying to get back to. This is what they understood. So it's what we need to understand when we look at how they live their life, you know, everything like that. So when we go and we look at the depictions of sports, you know, why they boxing, hockey, gymnastics, swimming, wrestling, all of the competitions they had. Another thing, and I know you're not going to see this right off the bat, but this is also something that mimics nature. When you see pride, when you see let's say a whole pack of lions, after they ate and everything is good, they fight, they play, they wrestle, they do things to what? To basically burn off that food, you know, to stay energized, and it's exercising basically. And this is what the ancient Egyptians came up with when they came up with these sports to help them master their animal nature. Because unlike many other things that we do, when you are in a competition, when you are playing some kind of sport or something like that, this is when your animal nature comes out. When you are playing football, I mean, you get aggressive and people growl, and you see how football players is. It comes out of you. But if you can have that kind of energy, that kind of nature come out of you and effectively control it, then that is power. And a lot of people don't understand that. When you look at almost every single sports team, they have an animal as a mascot. Why is that? Almost every team in every sport is based off of some kind of animal. Almost all of them. This is because this is all Masonic, by the way. It's all Masonic, but you know, it all goes back to ancient Kemet. But it's about mastering the animal nature, and so much so in sports like soccer and football that you see this, basketball as well. I mean, it's about controlling the animal and doing something, you know, great and amazing. This is why you have all of these Masonic sports owners, so-called Illuminati sports owners, people who are connected that are into these sports and have these teams. It's all about rising above that animal nature and taming that. It's power in it, and they understand it. They know how to bring it out. It's so many things that they do that they show you that it's going to be very hard for you to put together in piece. But I think through these series that I'm putting out, this volumes here and the Saturn Signet series, I mean, if it hasn't started popping out to you already, it will. I mean, I don't know how. If you've been keeping up with everything else, you should have a firm eye. If you do watch TV, you should have a firm eye on what's taking place and how it fits in with everything, as far as anything that's Masonic or Egyptian or what have you. You should be able to see it and start pointing it out from here on out. But this is why, you know, they came up with the sports and everything. It's to help them control the animal nature, one, but to also keep them in shape and keep their senses, their energies sharpened. And the Egyptians it was good at this. And we know the Nubians still carry on the traditions today, or the Sudanese, I should say. But this is why they did these things. And you got to understand why they did them and how they were trying to tame the animal nature. Everything is about that, because you have to master that first before you can get into anything spiritual. You have to master the body. So again, eating and all that, it all goes back to that. And when you go to the Bible, you can go into the Bible, and the Bible is basically telling you the same thing. When you look at an offensive lineman, when he steps to the line, the defensive lineman steps to the line. They come to that line with a lot of energy pent up, a lot of rage pent up. They are so set in their muscle tone, and they are so energized at that point before that ball is snapped. It takes so much discipline for them not to move an inch. Why do you think they put that call in football? False start, offsides. Think about that. I know it's little stuff like this people don't think about, but you got to understand why. This is controlling the animal nature, the animal instinct. You come up to the line with that much anger, so heated, ready to do bad or ready to knock this man to the ground, but you can't move. You got to have all that energy pent up, but you can't move until that ball is snapped when you on that line. That is power. That is power. And, you know, the way they look at it is we control this, the owners. They sitting up there like they are pharaohs. They are like they are Nisut. They are gods or something, controlling everybody down there. And the spectators are peasants, and we all watching it. And you got to understand how they look at it. You know, everything is symbolism to them. You know, but it's about controlling their animalistic nature. It's about controlling energy, mastering energy. But not just the animalistic energy, especially when it pertains to us men, because we have to master dual energies. The universe is Nut. It's a woman. The universe is a woman. And Nut gives birth to the sun. And we know the Bible stole that, you know, Jesus, God's son, and all this and that. But the woman is feminine energy. Us men, we are masculine and feminine energy. The woman is something totally different because she created our energy. So the men are the protectors of the woman. We have to protect that which created us, but we also have to master dual energies, male and female energies. We have to do that. So it's not just balancing the animalistic nature in us. It's about mastering and balancing the dual nature of man, which is masculine and feminine energy. Another thing that goes into this whole thing, the whole Masonic thing, is deep, as I said. But we got to look at these principles, these laws that the ancient Egyptians was big on, that they studied and tried to master. And as I said, they never mastered them. We give them a lot of credit, but the people who had the power, the beings who had the amazing power that the stories talk about, was far before the dynasties. And we got to understand that. And we got to understand that the woman is the key. This is why, the black woman is put down and destroyed. She has to be. The only reason why they want the black man gone, they want to keep some black women around, is because she is the creator. They race truly dies without the black woman because she can't produce light still. So, we have to really, our emotions have been changed to the point where we say, fuck that bitch, or she a whore. And, she just doing that because she a hoe. And we have so much hate and disdain for our black women, and we don't realize it. We don't realize how much is put out there for us to just have this separation with them, when we don't realize the power that they have, that she has. And we have to understand this. You can't help but love who you love in some cases. I'm not knocking anybody who is with a woman that's not black, or anybody who is with a man who's not black, because it is what it is. But that still is no cause for anybody to disrespect the black woman and not help to put her back in her place. And this is like one of my goals that I really want to put out, because I got videos coming soon on the black woman that is going to blow people away, that what she can do, that she doesn't realize she can do. But we still, as men, we have to protect them, but still master all these energies, which is why the men, were pharaohs, while the men was put on the throne, because we have a lot to deal with, as well as being a protector. The woman was, she ruled too, but she still was like, we was the puppet and she was the puppet master, kind of still that way today. Happy wife, happy life. But, we have to understand dealing with energies and dealing with with our nature, which is not just the nature of animal. For us men and women, it's dual natures of men, women, animal, and so much more. Now, when you look at Asar, or Osiris, he wears a W rayas, symbolizing the rulership of Upper and Lower Egypt, but also symbolizing the protection of the female energies, or the Niti. The Niti is the W raya, the cobra, and the vulture, which is Wajet and Nekbet. Now, no man could rule on a throne without going through a Set first. A Set is the throne maker. You have no pharaohs in Egypt, no kings. Remember, pharaohs and kings, all that stuff is stuff they made up. The Europeans, the Greeks came up with those names, but they called the Nisut. The king was called a Nisut, or Nisut Beti. The Nisut ruled the south. Nisut Beti ruled the north and the south. But they had to go through a Set. Remember, the woman is divine. We are to protect them, plain and simple. We like the presidents, got that hidden hand ruling behind us, but they put us out there to be the front man and protector and everything like that. But they also ruled as well. Now, when you go to the old ancient world, the old kingdom, the pyramid of Unis, Teti, and Pepi, you look at the pyramid text, the funerary text. Now, the Nisut, or the pharaoh, was basically given, he was able to bypass everything and go straight to the, to the afterlife, to, heaven or what have you, because the Nisut was considered the living embodiment of Horus. And the funerary text, which was basically a ritual that was done by funerary priest before, during, and after the burial ceremony, so that the Nisut can get into heaven. And, he gets there and he basically promises to bless the land, with crops and cattle and everything like that when he gets there. But the reason why I'm telling you all this is because when you look at the way it's all structured and set up, you know, Kemet and how they did things and how the structure was and how they had these beliefs and everything like that. The whole thing about mummification, and putting organs in canopic jars and everything like that, everything was as if they was always preparing to come back here. Why? Because they did not wake up yet. This is something that I really want you to understand because it's huge. They didn't wake up yet. They didn't get to the full power. Did they have connections? Did they awaken 7 chakras? And that's another thing, by the way, it's way more than 7 chakras. 7 is not even half. But I do believe they at least opened their third eye and they were starting to connect with their higher selves. I mean, it's something we're going to get into much later. But you got to understand and realize everything they did was to prepare to come back here. Plain and simple. And, it's something that the Bible told John 14:3. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I shall come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, ye may be also, you shall be also. So it's basically what the Pharaohs is talking about. I'm going to go and prepare this place for you. And then I'm going to come back. And I'm going to bless this world and make sure everything is fine so you can come to where I am. Remember, the Nisut get to bypass all the bull crap. But remember, I was showing you Nefer's Book of the Dead, where he had to go through judgment and his deeds had to be weighed on the scales of Ma'at to find out if he could get in. Everybody else had to go through judgments, but the Nisut get to bypass all this stuff we're going to get into in part 2. Everything, the gods and who created them, stuff like that. And all the stuff we're going to get into the names and the terminology and everything like that in part 2. Had to set the groundwork here so you guys can understand, what this stuff is about. Because without me giving you this information, everything else we're going to get into later, you're going to be like, it's not going to make sense. Especially the part about animal nature, especially the part about them trying to understand what they once was, and not that they was trying to, ascribe to something new and great. They had what was great. They had what was perfect and everything was working right. We don't know exactly what happened, but it's something that we're going to get into in the Saturn Satan series about what happens. And I'm kind of heading towards that way now. Somebody has came and changed all that. And I think that the powers that be who are in power plays a large role in all that. Now, the pyramid text is a bunch of spells, utterances, they call them, because they're supposed to be spoken. That dates back to, 2500 BCE, I believe, and the Pyramid of Unis, we find the first mention of Osiris and spell 239, I believe it is, in the Pyramid of Unis. There are over 200 spells in that pyramid. Teti and Pepi, I believe Pepi has the most spells, or Teti, one of them has about 600 utterances and spells or what have you. But everything comes from this, basically. And you have to realize something about the pyramid texts as well. There is no proof that these texts existed pre-dynastic, before the dynasties. So either they were done some other kind of way, these rituals or what have you, these spells, or they didn't need them. We don't know. But we know all of a sudden that, again, as I said, you have a period of no writing, then all of a sudden writing. And we know that basically all writing that we know of today basically came off of the Egyptians, And when you get into the Rosetta Stone and you start comparing it to other languages, and it's a lot of people have broken this stuff down. It goes back to ancient Kemet. Just that simple. I mean, we gave you paper. The simple fact that we created paper which you write on tells you that we are the source. Egypt was the source of all writing. Plain and simple. Everybody came there to learn and what have you. But again, all this is stuff that we're going to get into. Now, understand, all this stuff we're going to be getting into, basically, a lot of it comes from the pyramid text. Plain and simple. The whole Egyptian Book of the Dead, Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Book of Going Forth by Day. We're going to get into this and Ptah and a bunch of other books and stuff like that. We're going to get into. A lot of it comes from the pyramid texts, and Ra Unefra Amen is the one who gives us the Metu Neter, but I'm going to get into that and explain about that because, again, most of his stuff in that book comes from the pyramid text as well. But again, all of this stuff, it's so deep and it's like mind-boggling. Like it takes me time. I have to literally put this stuff together so I can kind of mold out a way to explain it to you so that you can understand that. My whole thing is to try to make this information as easy to understand as possible, and in order for me to do that, I have to set things up, the correct way, and set it up right so it's done in steps. So if you do watch and pay attention, as I keep saying, I'm not the most entertaining, articulate person in the world, and that's no knock on me. It's just that some people are just not going to find it very interesting, and the information is so vital and important and deep. If you don't already realize that now, then I don't think you ever will. But it has to be put together correctly for you to get it. For a lot of people to really understand. And I have so many questions, about this whole thing, because when we start getting into, if I get into, because it's something I'm debating about, the rituals, and this is where black people are gonna have a problem. If you don't understand how this stuff works, and that it's not spooky and satanic and all this kind of stuff and scary, you have to understand what it is. So if I do get into that, because that's something I'm debating on actually doing, because I think if I actually put something out like that, they would kill me. Seriously, I'm serious. I'm bored right now because of one of those rituals, and my hair's starting to grow back. But it's power. This is powerful, deep stuff. It's not nothing to joke about. If you know me, if it was something corny or something that wasn't, I wouldn't touch it. My whole thing is about getting rid of all this fake, corny stuff out here. Plain and simple. The Bible, like, come on the surface. Of course, we know about the deep hidden meaning. But, anything that's fake and corny, I don't deal with that stuff. Which is why I don't, it's all cool to listen to old school hip hop. But when I hear people now talk about shooting nigga in the head and all this stuff they done did to people, I can't relate to that stuff no more. It's not entertaining to me. I just like, come on, really? And how people try to act. I'm not with nothing that's so fake and phony now when we are in this situation we are in life right now. We gotta wake up. There's power waiting for us. There's so much waiting for us. And we got to get to it or we're going to be stuck. They preparing for us to be gone. And this stuff is deep. There's a lot of stuff that's happening that's not going to happen in your lifetime. But you can be naive if you want and think that you won't come back here. You will. So you need to understand this and get it into your consciousness. No matter how many times it takes, you might not do it this lifetime. But you need to get that coded in you. Because you're going to come back here and at least you'll have it coded within you. So then you'll pick it up easily. And then over time, you'll get it and you'll get to where you need to be. I don't know how much time we have left, but it's definitely not going to happen in this lifetime. We should have plenty of time left to get this stuff, which is why I'm taking my time to put it out to you, to give it to you in hopes that you guys can code this stuff, because this is what it's all about. When the ancient Egyptians is talking about DNA and talking about energy and everything like that, it's about DNA. It's about unlocking the DNA. Plain and simple. This is basically it. That's everything right there. I can really end the video right there, but you wouldn't get it. It's all about unlocking your DNA. And this is where, towards the end, when we're going to really get into quantum physics, because in order for you to do something, anything, it starts at a microscopic level and then works its way up. So if you can control it there, then, of course you're good to go. Or if you can understand it there, you're good to go. Plain and simple. So it's about unlocking the DNA. They talk about, they know about 3 parts of the DNA, what it is and what it does. Everything else they call junk DNA. It's not junk DNA. It's sleeping DNA. It's locked DNA. Who locked it? Why? Because it's literally locked. Seriously, it's like it's set. The three parts is set to this reality, and the other parts is like locked out of tune within us. So the whole thing is, getting in tune with yourself, because that's where it's locked at. It's not locked in some divine place. It's locked within you. So man, know yourself so you can unlock it. Meditate. Everything has to be done within. Remember in the Bible when Jesus said the reason why he didn't like the preachers, he said, because you do not go in and you don't allow the people to go in. He's talking about within. Remember, the kingdom of God is within you. Everything in. It's in us. Plain and simple. I mean, everything is going to become clear. We're going to get into everything, and it's going to make a lot of sense if it don't already. So now understand, the ancient Egyptians had a goal. They had a job to do. It was to unlock their DNA, to understand what happened to them and why they fell, to understand who they was and regain that power. And they knew they had to do that. So they were already to a point where they had at least that knowledge of understanding that they were something great and that they were gods before and that they had this power. Now, the gods, whoever it was, these powerful beings that ruled before the pre-dynastic time, they are them. They were them. They had the energy within them. They can never become those gods again because they didn't know how. So that was the whole job, was unlocking it. They never succeeded. They didn't fulfill the goal. It has now been passed to us. They were the descendants of the gods. We are now the descendants of them. And you understand why we were enslaved. This is why. So we can never reach this power. Understand, ye are gods. You. We are gods. Plain and simple. It's just that simple. I'm not saying that white people are not gods and they can never be gods, but they can never be who we are supposed to be. And that's not a knock on them. If they see, you have white people who accept this and understand that the only way that they can get right spiritually is to help us so we can get them right. We have never, you won't find a depiction in ancient Kemet of the Egyptians treating white people like second-class citizens or the way we are being treated. You won't find it. You won't find it. There's no way they can get to where they need to be spiritually unless we help them. And we were helping them until you have a group of people come along. These beings came and took over. And it is what it is. What happened, happened. But now we are waking up and we are understanding our purpose. We are the descendants of kings, of the Nisut, of the Netchers, the gods. And we got to wake up and realize who we are and what's possible, what we can possibly do. And people talk about, Egyptian alchemy and power and this and that magic and everything like that. I put out the voodoo DVD so you can understand what that is. But you got to understand this stuff is not possible unless you are awakened, unless you get this information and knowledge for you to do it. People who you are seeing doing magic are doing things that it's amateur hour, plain and simple. That's all it is. It's all they can do here. And everything, and this is not a black white thing when I'm saying this, everything that you see them do as far as like making themselves Superman and X-Men and powerful, or being the Houdinis or the David Blaines or the Chris Angels and everything like that, that's it. That's it. It's all they can ever do. I'm talking about a power so powerful. I mean, when you talk about changing energy into matter and changing matter into other matter, I mean, it doesn't get any. Creating your own universe, your own planet, your own people, beings, the control of control. This is what they're talking about. This is what they speak about. Unbelievable power. What could stop something like that? That's what you need to think about. And that's something we're going to get into in the end, because power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is something we're going to get into, but the Hebrew Israelites are correct. They are right, but they are wrong. They are off on what they're saying. When the Bible is talking about, when they're talking about us being chosen people, we are chosen people, because the slaves who were brought from out of Africa into America, who was enslaved around the world, enslaved around Europe, even the Africans that was already in the Americas, and I got a video coming up on that soon, we're from Kemet, we're from Africa. We are descendants. All of us descendants of them. The reason why they was enslaved was to keep them from ever knowing this power. Plain and simple, from ever realizing what they can do. So when the Hebrew Israelites talk about, oh yeah, well, God chose the people when we was enslaved and, set apart, they're referring to us. Yes. The metaphor for us being the true Hebrew Israelites is basically us being the true descendants of the ancient Egyptians, of power, of gods. God's chosen people. Who is God, basically, in the Bible? As I said, it's the government. It's the powers that be. They chose us. So it's like a double metaphor. They chose us because we are the true power and they enslaved us. But we are also, the creator. The creator, the closest thing to the creator. The closest thing to the original man on this planet that the creator created. Just that simple. They know. But there are rules. There are laws. There's something happening out there that's messing with in here. And it's deep. It's on some cosmic, super deep, mind-boggling stuff. And it's where I'm at in my research, which is way up there. And it's rules. And I'm gonna get into all this stuff eventually. And you'll understand what I mean by rules as we go along. It's laws that they follow. They have to follow. So they can't just take over, because they have to follow these laws. And they are, which is why they're winning, because we don't even know how to fight. But understand, it's only a matter of time, before they are eventually defeated, because, it can't last forever. Plain and simple. Nothing lasts forever. It changes or it decides to do something else. You can't rule or reign. No dynasty on this planet has reigned forever. So something is going to happen. They are smart enough to reign so long because they understand how we work. They understand how the brain works, and they have made the conditions that we live in and the environment and atmosphere that we live in, so they know how to change it. They know how to affect us to get the outcome that they want. It's just that simple. Everybody should see that now. I mean, the simple fact that people still fall for elections tell me that, maybe a lot of people are still asleep. But to me now, not a knock on white people, but I say that's mostly white people. I think a lot of black folks are waking up. Yeah, of course, a lot of us are still stuck in religion and the whole Jesus stuff. Still ain't figured that stuff out. The whole Quran stuff, a lot of people still ain't figured that out. A lot of people still stuck, and they fear this. They're scared of Kemet. Boo, it's the boogeyman. They scared of all that. When I try to talk to people about, when I wear my chains, or what that stuff is. Oh, no, that's that devil stuff. Or that's that Illuminati stuff. And it's like, man, I get upset. It's like, what? What are you talking about? And then, for the people who do want to stick around and debate about it, they learn. Trust me, because I break it down to a lot of people. I can't tell you how many times I've been out and somebody made a comment about the chain and it led to a religious discussion. And I basically wiped the floor with them in the discussion as far as setting them straight. And hopefully they did take my advice, and they do now actually watch my YouTube channel and look at some of the videos, because I recommend a lot of people to just go and watch and understand and wake up. Not just me, but other people online as well. But I wanted to lay this groundwork in this DVD, in this video, and get you guys to understand like the premise. And all of this is going to lead up to, the great and wonderful mental nurture and a lot more. But this is something that you got to get right here so you can understand, because it's the groundwork for everything that is to come. Without this, there's no way we could even begin to start with the rest of this volume. So this is volume 1. We're going to get into in volume 2 the gods and everything like that, and the stories, the mythologies, and show you how they parallel with the whole Greek mythology and how they stole from it, the Romans and everybody else, and how that translates into everything. I'm talking about the Bible and everything else, but more than that, it's going to really give you a closer look into Kemet and what they was doing and everything else. Remember, it's nothing new under the sun. Everything they was doing was trying to get back, not to move forward, but to go back. Everybody has been trying to go back, not forward. Everything that we think is new is technology that has already existed, and there's better technology than that. Y'all think it's new stuff that they came up with. It's not. Those machines that was left behind, possibly when the pyramids was built, I believe they was. Where are they? I believe they have them. I believe they had them for a long time, and they've been finding probably more stuff. Who knows how long? The Cairo Museum has some metal pieces, like disc shaped things and everything that they put out that I think somebody leaked some pictures, as well as things that's supposed to be machine parts for the machines that was possibly used to help cut the stones and build the pyramids. So who knows what they got? We don't know. The whole story about aliens giving them technology and everything like that, that's something I'm going to get into later, because there's a lot of validity in that. But it's deep. It's deep. So, to give it to you like this, it's like something happened. It's like, when you get in an argument with your brothers and sisters, right? And then y'all argue about something, like you argue about playing a game. So now, since y'all argued about playing a game, y'all fought and everything like that, y'all on time out, and nobody can touch the game for a certain period of time. That's kind of sort of like what happened here, and I'm going to get into that. It's like, it's rules now. You can't touch the game, or you can play the game at this time, you can play the game at this time. It's rules that you got to follow. But if y'all fight, it's all off. If y'all do this, it's all off. It's rules to this. And it seemed like, well, I'm going to say it almost is, we are caught up within these rules, and they have to be followed. And a time is going to come. Don't know if it's in our lifetime, or I don't think it's not in our lifetime, but time is going to come. Not in this lifetime, I don't think, where the rule will end. The rules will end, and it'll be fair game. And things will change, and people will start seeing stuff differently. But I guarantee you, the powers that be is going to prepare us for this. And I'm going to get into this later. So a lot more to come from me. A lot more that we got to get into. And I meditate a lot. And I heard people say this stuff before a long time ago. And I'm not that guy. I never wanted to be, that guy. But when people say stuff just come to you and everything like that, people say I talk to the gods, or I meditated and stuff just came to me. Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. When you live in that meditation life, I'm trying to make that a slogan. Meditation life. I'm telling you, when it's coded in you, man. It's already in you. The answers is here. It's in you. So it's not like you really got to read a book and you got to study. It's there. What happened? Everything is in here. It's in you. It's coded within you. They were trying to bring it out of them. We got to bring it out of us. And I've been bringing it out of me. I've been bringing it out of me for a long time. And I know people who have as well. So when people talk about real deep knowledge, or sometimes you probably be doing this now yourself, some of you who've been really into this for a long time, who's meditating, when you start doing research on something, or you start dwelling on something, and it's like pieces of the puzzle start putting itself together, and it's like, well, damn, I ain't had to read 10 books to figure it out. Oh, so this is why this happened. The puzzles start connecting automatically. It's locked in. It's locked in you. And this is what happens with me. So the information that I put out, that stuff, my conclusion finally that I'll give you in my videos, I already came to that conclusion years ago. This stuff may be new to you, but it's years old to me, So, but the information came to me like a puzzle. Like I'll be sitting there reading a book, and just like a whole scenario pop in my head. And what I do is I go research it to see if what I just thought is true, and it'll be true. So when I talk to you about meditation and unlocking the DNA, this stuff is real. It's not no spooky, hocus pocus crap. It's real. And if you don't take nothing away from watching my videos and knowing about me, is know this: I'm not going to give you none of that crap, none of that spooky mumbo jumbo, fake stuff. It's just not going to happen. It's never been me. What I'm giving you is always going to be stuff that I've experienced, that I know is real, that can be proven, not some, that Jesus stuff. Y'all know me. I don't get into all that, but I want you to understand this information that's going to come. I'm always going to give you research to back it up and point in this direction, that direction, give you references or whatnot. But yeah, the stuff that I've spent years figuring out, and I'm going to save you guys a lot of trouble. And Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. Good thing we still got Phil Valentine and a lot of other weirdos out there who are geniuses. I'm a weirdo, I'm gonna tell you straight up, but I'm a genius. Other people are as well. A weirdo considered a weirdo by other people's standards, not by mine, and probably not by yours either. But you might think of yourself as weird as far as what other people do. What I find fun is meditating, reading books, and then when I get tired of doing that, I play games. And I go to school. I like to learn. I've always been that way. If I learn something new, what? That's like a cheesesteak to me. That's like a large pizza. Learning something new. If I learn something new, that's an amazing thing to me. Especially if something that's crazy that I didn't know. I like stuff like that. I like getting this information. I like sharing the information, and this is why I do what I do. But this DVD, I didn't want it to be too long. And I really appreciate you guys purchasing it. We have a nice journey ahead of us. We started it already. We got more to go. I hope you guys appreciate the work and the time that I put into what I do. And the fact that you bought the DVD or downloaded it shows that you do, and I appreciate it. And the reason why I put it up for sale, of course, is because now, you get to a point, and I said this to myself before. I said, why don't they just put out the information for free? If they really want to help people, why don't they just put it out for free and help everybody? Because when you do that, and it's messed up that our society is like that. But when you do that, it's like you almost cheapen the information. You get people they ask questions. Well, if it can't be right because they let you put it on YouTube. It can't be right, or else they would have took it down. So people don't appreciate the information and the time. I don't know how long this video is. It's over an hour, I know that. But I know it probably took me at least 6 hours, 2-3 days to put it out, to record it. This ain't a one-day thing. I have this same shirt on throughout the video, but it just took me like 3-4 days to do. I think it's 4 days now. It's done now to put it out. And you got to understand, why is that? It's not that it's so information can be put out right. And plus, I'm busy, of course. I got stuff to do. So I can't just, sit down, one take hold of it and just put everything out. But it takes time, So I hope you guys, again, appreciate it. And volume 2, we're going to get into that. I have some other videos I got to put out that's going to come out on YouTube to help connect between this DVD and volume 2. So y'all know how I do it. But I want to thank you guys for buying again, and thank you guys for watching. So now we're at the end of the DVD, unfortunately, but in volume 2, we are going to get into the gods, the ancient Egyptian gods. Who created who is whose father, who is married, who is brother and sisters, the whole story of Horus and Aset, and Asar, Aset, and Haru. We're going to get into everything. Seth, all of that. We'll get into that in volume 2. There's a lot we got to get into. Sorry about the helicopter. Of course, they always flying overhead when they come out here. But we're going to get into all that, start getting into the deities and start understanding why they created these deities and what principles belong to them. Because we got to understand something, that these gods, according to the ancient Egyptians, walk the earth. They'll tell you themselves. Before them, gods walked the earth. But then you have to understand what gods they are speaking to in principle that belong to a principle or a power. We got to go through that, understand who is who and what is what, and figure this whole thing out. And we're going to get into that and get into the next volume and the next volume and then into the mental nature itself and everything else. We got a lot to go. I want to thank you guys again for purchasing, and see you guys volume 2.